And that is the problem on my Porsche Boxster, fixed for just £33. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the first video of 2023 on my Porsche Boxster GTS. I bought this car at the back end of 2021 from a car auction. In 2022 I took it over the Alps on 2 separate occasions and it never missed a beat. During the winter I haven't really used it. It was in hibernation for about 3 months. So when I got it out of hibernation and taxed it on the 1st of April, it was no surprise to me that it still seemed to be in perfect and mechanical order. So I gave it a quick wash and a check of the tyre pressures and some localish test drives, and then took it on a tour of the Scottish Highlands. True to form, it got us the 550 miles to Inverness without missing a beat. But as soon as we went north of Inverness, which was as far as I've ever driven north and as far away from home as I would be on this trip, it started to play up because it put a PSM error on the dashboard. Now the car still drove okay. It said you can carry on driving with extra care, and actually when you turn the ignition on and off, when you turn it back on again, it was okay, and it was okay for another 2 days, another sort of 300 miles, but the fault came back, and since I've been home it's done it on pretty much every trip, so there's definitely some fault there. And in today's video I'm going to explain to you what that fault is, how it's got nothing to do with the PSM system, and how I fixed it for the princely sum of just 35 of your pounds. Okay, so the first thing to do is try and pin down what the fault is. You would assume it was Porsche stability management related, but actually a bit of research on the internet suggests it's really nothing to do with that. The PSM system takes data from a lot of other modules: the brakes, the steering, the engine, and a very common complaint on the internet was that the very early 981 Boxsters had a sticking brake pedal, and that would confuse the stability system. But this car was a little bit later, and there were no reports of it on a 2014 car or later, so I kind of put that to one side. Another common theme was that it related to a failing coil. Now, Porsches are no less immune to coil pack failures than Volkswagen, and whilst Volkswagen Group got a lot better in the sort of the last decade or so, before that they had a lot of trouble, and their coil packs are by and large under a very dry and warm and clean bonnet on a Porsche, particularly a 911, but it's pretty bad on these as well. The coils are exposed to heat from the catalytic converters, and they're very close to the dirt that gets flicked up when you're driving. They're not protected at all really, because the engine needs venting so it can lose heat, and as a result it's actually quite open, quite low down, even though I've actually never seen the engine from the top. That I'm sure is something I will do soon. So to pin it down, well, what would you do? You'd use diagnostics. Unfortunately, even though Porsche part of the Volkswagen Group, VAGCOM VCDS does not work with these cars. So I did a bit of research, and whilst I'd love to have invested in a proper system that's the equivalent of VCDS, I'm not sure it would prove particularly good value for money, because I don't really use it all that often. I never have loads of Porsches, I just have one. So the next best option seemed to be iCar Soft. I wish this was an advert. I wish I was getting paid or had this for free, but I paid 136 quid for this. I think it came really, really quickly, and this does the, but when I say basic diagnostics, it does every module, but it doesn't do an awful lot. For example, I'd love to recode the parking brake to come on when I take the key out. I can't do that, but I can do basic diagnostics. So you use this keypad, it's not touch. We go into diagnostics, we select Porsche, we select the version, and then we are going to select the vehicle from a list. Quite a long way down is Boxster Cayman 981, and then you can let it run through all the modules, and it will show you the faults that are in them. But I'm just going to do a control unit scan. So I'm going to pick the control module, the ignition is on, and I'm going to go straight into the engine DME. I can't remember what that means, but basically that's the engine ECU. Enter that, and then read the fault code. And blimey, after all that, it could be this, it could be that. This is particularly specific. It says limit exceeded, bar ignition module on cylinder 6 soft shutdown. So that's basically a coil pack failure on cylinder 6, which is the rearmost one on the passenger side, which makes sense because that's actually the most exposed to all the filth that's down there. Now I did notice actually before I got this that occasionally when the error came on, the car would shudder for a split second before the PSM warning was displayed. It didn't do that initially, not under hard throttle interestingly, it's usually under light throttle. And the car then would continue to run okay, so there's clearly something a bit more sophisticated about the coil packs on Porsches, because on a Volkswagen when it starts to misfire, it continues to misfire and that cylinder is basically shut down and you shouldn't drive the car. So it's good that you get a warning, and actually if you own a Porsche that's over sort of 6 years old, it's never had coil packs, you should replace them as a matter of course because they're in such a vulnerable position. And the good news is they're not expensive. So let me now show you the parts we're going to fit to my Porsche Boxster GTS. Okay, so the easiest way to get a new coil would be to go to your Porsche centre. They've got a nice showroom, you can have a walk around, you can have a coffee, and you can pay probably 3 times more than you need to for the part. You can save about 40% by going to Euro Car Parts. They do the coil for this car for about £50, and it's the same Baru brand as the original Porsche one. There's no compromising quality, so that's quite a good saving. But you can save even more like I did. So I shopped around and I've used this company Autodoc in Germany quite a few times. They're quite useful if you can wait for the part. This car was driving okay. I knew one day it might get worse, so I haven't really used it much, but I could wait for the part. Euro Car Parts trade on the fact that you want the part that day or the next day. They hold stock in the UK and you can get the job done a lot sooner, while Autodoc could take 7 to 10 days to come. But that's what I did, and I saved about £20 per coil over the Euro Car Parts price. That's £120. So well worth doing, and I was a bit worried they come with customs charges on top, but they didn't. And I was also pretty impressed that they were made in Germany. I knew they'd be Borg Warner Baru, again just like the original parts, but I thought they'd be making them in China, but actually it says on here made in Germany. So big ups to Baru Borg Warner for keeping their manufacturing in Europe. So let me just show you the new one and the old one. So as you can see, they are identical. This one's a bit grubbier, and it doesn't, the new one doesn't have the Porsche logo on there. Porsche use a very weird sort of V-shaped logo for their parts, but it is identical, and they both say Baru, so you can see it's the same make. Baru on this original one and Baru on this new one, so no compromises in quality. Now we just have to fit it. Now you could just replace the one, and that's how you can fix this job for £33-ish. The diagnostics have said it's coil pack number 6, which is the rearmost one on this side. But if a car gives you a warning like that, then you should do all 5. And the car's 8 years old now, just over. So they've done pretty well, and I don't want one going down when I'm up an Alp or any other place when I'm, well actually any other time at all, because it's not good for the engine when they do fail. So let me show you now how easy it is to replace the coil packs on your 981 generation Boxster or Cayman, even though I've never seen the engine. Okay, these are the tools you're going to need. Something to jack the car up with, an axle stand to put underneath it, something to remove the wheel bolts with, a flat blade screwdriver, and T25 and T30 Torx drivers, a long extension for your socket, and a universal joint because it can be a bit tricky to get into. I'll get onto the screws that hold the coil packs onto the engine, and you also need to take the wheel arch liner off. It's a good time to clean in there. So I've got a little brush to get rid of all the muck that's inevitably accumulated in there, and some lube, which is just handy for spraying on the coils when you slot them into the engine, and also spraying down the threads when you put the screws in, and also spraying over bits inside the wheel arch once you've taken the liner off, if you're a bit weird like me. And that's it. I've also got a screwdriver type attachment for my socket, because some things are a bit easier with this, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, let's jack the car up. Okay, so when you first start trying to see the coils, you might think, how the hell am I going to do this? I can just about see coil 6, but 5 and 4, particularly 4, are pretty well obscured. Well, to make life easier, we're going to take the wheel arch liner off. So for this, you need a 10mm socket on the 2 sort of nuts at the top. And then next onto the T25 screws that hold the liner onto the body. And there she goes. To keep those safe, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in here you can see we've got 8 years and 40 something thousand miles of ingrained crud, which I'll get off later. I won't do it now because it will end up all over my GoPro. Right, does this make seeing the coils any easier? No, not really. Okay, so we'll start off then with number 6, which is the easiest one. So we're just going to use this longish extension T30 Torx to get the retaining screw out. Okay, that's coming. And then now it's loose, I'll wind it out by hand. Okay, so that's the screw. Now we just need to undo the loom, which it's got a little tab on it. You press that in and then you should be able to lift it up off the coil. With the tab off, you should be able to slide it off. That's it. So with the plug off, the coil should just pull off. And there we go. I was hoping it would be damaged or cracked. I mean, you know, it's right next to the cat, but yeah, it looks mint. Strangely. Okay, let's just fit the new one then, and slotting it into position. Now it's important to make sure you're not squashing the plug as you push the coil on. I'm not sure how much room there is, so just try and flick it to one side and then push the coil in. And because the loom's quite short, it should just sit roughly in the right place. Again, it's a good idea to swap hands. Okay, that feels good. And we want to hear it click into place. There we go. That's really important, because if you don't lock it into place, it will pop off. It's just straight up the cord to make sure it's lined up, because it can rotate away from where you want it. And then let's just start it off by hand. Okay, it doesn't need to be too tight. And that is the problem on my Porsche Boxster fixed for just £33. Only problem now is there are another 5 to do. I think 2 you can go straight onto with the socket. Yeah, it goes on there. You've got to be careful not to round it off, but because you're approaching it at an angle. That's loose. Get the fingers in there just about. And that's the screw. Now, to get the loom off, I heard it click. Now we just need to slide it off. Yes. Okay, second one, number 5, under 5. Actually, because number 4, the third one, is so hard to get to, I'm going to leave that one out because it might influence how easy it is to do this inner one. Okay, that is loose. Yeah, I've got my finger on it. Okay, now let's get the plug off. So we're looking for the click. Yep. Come on. That's off. And there is the last one on this side. Out. Okay, I'm just fumbling to get the loom, and that's actually on the coil now. Yep, click, click, push that in, check that's secure. That's good. It's going to be a bit hard to see if it's lined up, but it's nice and clean, so that kind of helps, and you can feel the part of the engine where it goes in. I think that's good. Right, let's try and thread this in by hand first. Blimey, the thread's going in as well, so that's good. Okay, we're on. Yep. Yep, happy with that. Okay, so that just leaves the middle one to put in. So give it a bit of lube. And it's lined up. That's good, that's in. Okay, now we just need to get it plugged in. Just easier said than done. Click, let's wait for the click. Yep, that's in. Try and pull it off, it doesn't move. Okay, let's push it all the way into the engine. Get my hand out, and then just move it slightly clockwise, like so. And then now to get the screw in, so we'll start off with it by hand. And that is all it needs. One last check of the plug. Okay, so that's this side of the car done. The good news is, on the right hand side, the UK driver's side, it's actually a little bit easier. So if you can do it on this side, you'll walk it on the other side. So that's hopefully the original problem fixed. To know for sure, we'll have to go for a test drive. Before we do that though, we need to clear the fault code memory so that when we come back from the test drive and check for fault codes, we know that if there are any in there, they will be new ones that have occurred since the coils were replaced. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since I fitted the brand new coils to my Porsche Boxster GTS, and as you can probably tell from that footage you've just seen, I've done quite a few miles testing just to make 100% sure they fix the problem, because when the problem started it was actually a couple of hundred miles in between the problem recurring. So I've done about 400 miles. I can be completely confident they have fixed the problem, but just to be doubly sure, let's see what the diagnostic device says. So this hasn't been reset since just after they were fitted. Okay, so going into the engine control module, read fault code, and no fault code found, which is really great news. So problem fixed for just under £34, and then I can drive the car with confidence that the remaining 5 won't go down in the foreseeable future. Now, while I was doing the testing, unfortunately another very common Porsche problem arose, and that's something I'll tell you about in the next video on my Porsche Boxster GTS. As ever guys, thanks for watching this Volkswagen video. Keep subscribing, keep commenting, and I'll see you for the next one very soon.